explanation about that sign over there. The North American Spoon Plugging Consultants. There's been some questions that have come up, and I'd like to clear those questions up so there'll be no doubt in anybody's mind. North American Spoon Plugging Consultants was founded by Rocky Bridges and myself in accordance and on the advice of Mr. Buckler. Everything that we do is under his direction and, of course, with his permission. So that would be the first thing I want understood. There's four of us. Rocky Bridges, get all of your names so I can see it. Mike Moran, who we can thank for that beautiful sign. And our other partner, Vince Romano, who couldn't be here this year. One guy had to stay home and take care of the business, so always remember it's with Buck's permission and under his direction. Any program that we run. Recently, we've had an opportunity to conduct some spoon plugging classes in Northern Illinois, around the Chicago area. The response was real good, a lot better than we thought. And back on the lakes in our area where spoon plugging was very, very popular through the 50s and 60s and early 70s, we rekindled that playing again. And now the spoon pluggers are all over those lakes again. And through the schools and classes, of course, came a new club, the Northern Illinois Spoon Plugging Club. You'll meet some of the fellas, a couple of them are here, Ralph Tucker is here, and the other guys are out fishing, would you believe. So, these guys have had a lot of success, brand new. They weren't tournament fishermen, and they weren't anything special. They're just regular people like you and I. And so this is how it all started. These schools, there's been some question about what is the future of these schools. Why aren't they in Tennessee, or why aren't they in Georgia, or why aren't they in Florida? Probably a lack of manpower is the real reason. Mr. Perry's plans for the future are to be able to bring the classes to anyone who so desires them. We're going to do this through a central school held somewhere to train different people to be able to teach the classes. This is some of the plans for the future. We intend to have schools where people have a need. We conducted a class here on mapping and interpretation and presentation of lures over the last 4 days actually. We conducted that class at the Holiday Inn right up on Dixon Road, Holiday Inn Express. And we had good response from the guys. You could talk to them, ask them how they liked it, whether they thought it was worthwhile. They'll probably give you a good insight on what the spoon plugging classes are all about. In the future, we intend to have classes for beginners, and then we intend to have an advanced class. Okay, so some of the things I'm going to go over tonight are going to be about an advanced class later on, but right now, part of the program is Mr. Perry's literature on structure situations. Approximately 17 different structure situations. The class consists of telling you how to present lures to the fish under these conditions, how to recognize these conditions, how to not get lost when you're on the water. Whether you're fishing in Tennessee, or up in Illinois, or in Wisconsin, or in Florida, and you see the type of lake it is, an artificial reservoir, or a natural lake, a deep glacier lake in the north, or a shallow, warm water lake down in Florida, you'll know what structure situation to anticipate, and immediately you'll know how to fish there. You'll never be lost. You'll know more about the lake by the sections of the lake that you map, and your interpretation will tell you more about the lake than people who live there for 20 years. No longer will you fear to go anywhere, that any water's too big, or it's too weedy, or it's too clear. You have to put all this together. We all know what to show you some teeth that, some fish that perhaps you haven't seen before. They got a whole bunch of teeth. We got some Michigan guys here. But to show you some of the muskies that we've been catching that are within an hour's drive to Chicago and in northern Illinois in the chain of lakes. These are muskies. And from 1 hour from Chicago doing an extensive stocking program, these are the kind of fish we've been able to catch and have the students that have been in our classes take the underwater training and catch. And the northern Illinois guys have been catching quite a few of them. One particular structure in Lake Marie, the northern Illinois spoon pluggers took between 60 and 65 muskies over 30 inches off this particular structure in about 2.5 weeks. So that's what's been going on up there. Rocky's going to clip to him. There's my beautiful wife with a 38-inch muskie that she caught up in that Chain of Lakes area. This is Rocky and I, not a very good picture, but it was at night. We caught about 8 or 9 that day, and this was from a southern Wisconsin lake. A couple of big bass, average size northern. This is Rocky with another muskie, about a 37 and a half inch one. These are big fish. This is a big northern from Lake Michigan, the southern Wisconsin lake, about 11-pound northern. Rocky with another northern, bigger than that one. That one was from Lake Marie. This is our other partner, Vince Romano. We couldn't get a picture of him with his shirt on, so this is the best we could do. And that's him. This is a fellow, a student that Vince had out, and this was a northern from Lake Marie, about 10.5 pounds. And this is Vince with a bass over 8 pounds that he caught out of a small pond. And that's a 42-inch muskie from the Chain of Lakes. And this is Rocky with a mixed stringer there. He's got a bass and some northern. But these are all nice fish, and these are the type of fish that these people have been catching. And needless to say, they've never caught this type of fish before. One of the biggest thrills for me was Ralph Tucker, who you all know. Ralph been spoon plugging quite a while, getting better and better and better. But he never caught him casting. And Ralph went through the class. He was kind enough to help in a few classes, running the slide projector and stuff when Rocky couldn't be there. And one day, Ralph took up a casting position because he knew it was the right thing to do. He had gone through the classes. And I think he caught a 35-inch muskie and a 20-something-inch walleye on successive casts. And that was a big thrill for me because Ralph has been a good student and a good friend. And to see him get in his first casting position, even though it was just two, this is a thrill for me, to see people have success and begin to understand. So Ralph would never hesitate to do this again. Some of the things that we're going to cover, Rocky's going to go through these quickly until I stop him. In the classes about the 17 structure situations is when you get on the lake, you'll know exactly what to look for. As I mentioned before, stop there. Two different types of structure situations. One, a long ridge type structure that we call a bar, running out into the deep water, either into the channel or the deepest water in the area. The other, a long structure, a long ridge type structure that the river channel comes up next to shore, makes a cut, and swings across the lake in an artificial reservoir. Different type of structure, same principles. We go over the presentation of lures, off stuff like this, and sight. This is the thing. Your eyes as an aid. That darn depth finder will get you in more trouble. It's a good aid if it's used properly, but it'll get you in more trouble with fish alarms going off and pretty little fish with tails on them. It was bad enough with the flasher. I told the students, the flasher was bad enough because when you looked at the flasher, also draws pictures for you. So you could wind up never taking your eyes off that screen. And that's a big problem. On a reservoir, we tell you what to look for. Like, for instance, this. You just saw that slide that showed you the river channel come up against the shoreline, swinging out across the lake. You don't know that, but your interpretation when you look at the shoreline, your interpretation using your eyes as an aid. The depth finder isn't even on yet. We're cruising the lake looking for something to fish, looking for a possible structure. And we see this situation here with the long ridge-type structure going to be formed after the channel swings along the steep shore and starts to swing out. This is something we see with our eyes, not with the depth finder. Now we go over there. We found something to fish. We go over there and we map and interpret this structure. And if it looks like a structure situation, then we will begin to troll it using the spoon plugs as our final mapping tool to tell us whether it's soft, hard, brushy, or whatever. We teach this in the class through a series of slides. What to look for. What type of situations form this. This is a great slide. Low water slides. It took Buck a long time to get these pictures. What you see right here with the river channel during the low water, as you begin to get better and better in your mapping interpretation of an artificial reservoir, you have to be able to picture this in your mind. The water and the fish are only one thing. You want to look at this thing like there is no water in this lake. The picture you want to see in your mind is the channel where you see the water and the long ridge-type structure that this channel forms. This is what you want to be able to picture that's under the water. You have to be able to do this. And believe me, with practice, patience, and possibly a little bit of help, this is a possibility. Same type of situation. A flat land type reservoir, low land. Where do we go in this lake? You've got some arrows there to tip you off, but why? And what if the arrows aren't there? What if you just have an overhead map of the river channel? Do you know where and why? Where do you concentrate your efforts? A river channel may run for 200 miles. What's there? The fellas that fish here in the TVA system, they know about cuts, feeder stream cuts and stuff like that. But the majority of people around this country have never fished the TVA system. They don't know. So if they come down here, instead of being scared to death, they have to have some type of education to come down here and fish these lakes. Okay? Or a lot of help. Washes and slides. How to recognize them, what to look for when you're out in the water. You're in a canyon type situation. You're in a canyon type situation, what do you look for? You look for washes and slides along the steep shoreline that may form a structure. We talk about that and how to fish them. Islands with saddles. Where could the home of the fish be in that saddle? What does it look like? What do you picture during a low water situation like this? What do you picture in your mind? How do you think it looks when there's no water in there or during low water conditions? This is all the stuff that this is about. You can tell it's all Buck's material. It's all his stuff. We go over each one of these situations. Rocky reefs and big glacier lakes. It may be the only structure in the whole lake. Some people go right by it. Being able to recognize a break line. In some lakes, the break line is consistent. Maybe out here in the TVA system, the break line is consistent along the river channel. It may be the delta hump may be at 16 or 18 feet, and the first break line may be at 21 for a long distance. But in smaller bodies of water, in our many structures, the break line changes. it changes. In one section, on one finger, it breaks from 6 to 12 feet. The next finger breaks from 16 to 21. The next finger from 18 to 23. The next finger from 12 to, say, 16 or 18. What it is a break line, no matter what depth it's at, is constant. It's an abrupt change of depth. An abrupt change of depth. At a certain depth, you have an abrupt change. And it varies as you get closer to the deep water. So in your mapping interpretation, you have to be able to map that first. Using a depth finder as an aid, and then you've got something to fish. You can't map it and fish it at the same time. You can't do that. You can't do that, especially large structures with a lot of twists and turns in them or a lot of fingers on them. We're all anxious to go fishing, all anxious to get the lure of the water, but you have to find somewhere to fish before you can do that. What would this mean to a person, okay? What would this mean to you? Where would you go? Would this be a good situation or a bad situation? Which one would be better? And under what conditions? This is all the stuff that you see in the classroom about the 17 different structure situations. Low water slides, okay, delta conditions, flatland type reservoir where the structure runs out to the channel, which makes it rather obvious and rather easy to fish. A little bit of a lowland type reservoir in the middle that does have some of a delta effect, but not very far. And then finally down at the bottom, a large delta condition such as what we have out here in the TVA system. How do you fish them and where do you go and what do you look for? And cuts aren't the only thing. They are not the only thing out here. You've got to remember that. You have to know what structure you're dealing with. There's a cut. There's another one. This is the best slide in the whole bunch. It shows the cut, shows the river channel, it shows the cut, it shows how deep it goes, it shows the eddy inside the cut. You can see everything here. We talk about this, go in depth with this, how to fish it, how to cast it, how to troll it. These guys that took the classes up here in Holiday Inn, they got kind of a crash course. We had to go as fast as we could for 3 classes. As you can see, this is all Buck's material. This is a cut. Go back to that one, Ron. That cut. This is a cut. Buck always tells us, what does he say about the cut? It has to go all the way to the shallows to be productive for the large round bass. There's a reason for that. And we tell you about that reason. There's also another reason. If it has to go all the way to the shallows, that means that they're in that cut at some time or another. And they may be in there more than you think they are. Another situation we're going to talk about. All these pictures and slides and diagrams, they're all Buck's material. They're his life. And all the how-to is all his literature, my experience of fishing with him, plus all his many, many, many experiences all over the country. All the hours and hours and hours of learning that took part, all his teaching of fortunate people like myself, all these great things. And we're able to put them together in a class, and we're able to offer them, of course, for a price to the students. Everything you see is things that you run into all the time in different parts of the country. The question and answers to this, the question and answers are always covered. Questions are answered as well as they can. If I can't give you an answer, I get one from Buck. Okay? But everything is covered. I don't think you left the stone unturned with this material this time. And the way he's got it, the way it comes forth, it moves along quickly, but it's very easy to understand. Very easy to understand. what the classes are about. Now, what they've been getting for the classes in the North is, as part of their fee, they receive Buck Berry's home study course. They receive this home study course as part of their fee, plus they receive a one-year membership to Spoon Pluggers of America as part of their fee. So they got a tremendous thing there. Look what they got back for their money. Buck's whole life in this home study course. And plus, the Spoon Pluggers of America membership, where they have other people to talk to, other people they can call on the phone, a club that they can join. And the clubs are very, very important. They really help each other a lot. Really, really help each other a lot. We're going to have some more slides and talk about a couple other things. One of them is very important to me, and it's something that I think we need to do a lot more of. And we're going to talk about perhaps just how easy it is, and something you should take into consideration. I've been talking and talking and talking, and my voice is going and going and going, so I'm going to take a break for about 10 minutes. I'm going to come right back, and we're going to talk about something that I think needs to be talked about, and that's the casting position. Okay, we're going to have some more slides. Am I here to get the lights? This is a situation that perhaps you've run into. I know I have. And this is what we talked about the casting position. Many times this can happen to you. If you don't understand math and interpretation on structure, a few common mistakes, such as not knowing the depth of the last break line, for instance, or not knowing the depth of the break line, you can suppose that you did everything correctly. If we take a look at the guy here that made the proper trolling passes as far as he was concerned, it was just like the book says. I did everything Mr. Perry told me to do. There was a problem. In his math and interpretation of the structure, he didn't know that this deeper break line existed. He didn't realize that this school of fish was here. When he got to approximately the 14 or 15 foot level with the 100, he made a trolling pass across the structure. He caught a 5-pound bass. He turned around, he landed that one, patted himself on the back. He had markers out. He was doing everything right. Everything right. He turned around and came back on the structure again. He hooked another one and he lost this one. So repeated trolling passes across the structure produced nothing. So he figured the fish were down, there wasn't any more there, and he left. He left the structure. Really, here's what really was taking place. The school of the big bass stopped at a deeper break line or a deeper break. It could be a drop-off at a different depth, a deeper depth. It could be a brush pile, a rock pile, a sunken boat, but something that was deeper. A break or a break line that was deeper on the structure. In his math and interpretation, he didn't go far enough using the depth finder as an aid. Remember I told you as an aid, to realize it was a different break line. If the break was down at the base of the drop-off or halfway down, he didn't know it because he didn't make any deeper trolling passes. He didn't make any deeper trolling passes. Therefore, he missed the school of fish. He missed the school. This is a common mistake. This can happen to everyone. This is the reason for the 700 and 800 series spoon plugs and the wire line. You can see that this guy fished in an orderly and precise manner prescribed by Mr. Perry, but he was a little lax in his mapping interpretation. He was a little lax in proceeding to go deeper. He missed the school of fish. This could happen down here, where a more experienced spoon plugger would be part of the group, would come along a few minutes later, and he'd be into this group of fish casting. The big catches, all the pictures back there, the big catches that Mr. Perry has made throughout the country. Fortunately, I was there with him on several of them. These big catches were inevitably made from a casting position of these largemouth bass. In Mr. Perry's material, he dwells on the casting position. He says, don't let casting be an enemy. But he spends time in his material where to anchor the boat, how to anchor the boat. Spoon plugging is a combination of trolling and casting, with trolling being the teacher. This is a case, when this situation occurs, the fish had some bottom feature that you can't see on that depth finder. Once again, that depth finder will kill you. And by not proceeding to go deeper and find this particular break that's on the structure, this bottom feature, you miss the fish. These fish would have been found from a casting position. After the first two were hooked, one landed, one lost. By fan casting from an anchored position, very, very possible, and more than just possible, very likely that you would have been into this school of bass. You would not have missed it. We become reluctant to cast for many reasons. Certainly there's certain situations that are trolling situations. Definitely. You know what those are and when you run into them. An oddball trolling situation that I can refer to for you is up in the northern Illinois chain of lakes, there's so many speedboats and jet skiers that you wouldn't dare anchor up there. You take your life in your hands as it is, trolling. But trolling gives us a way to compete against that kind of traffic and still catch the fish. That's an example of a situation that becomes a trolling situation due to the water traffic. Other trolling situations could be an excessively deep break line along the river channel where you had to go down with wire line. And in order to catch these fish, you had to stay there. That's where they were. You couldn't reach them on a cast. You couldn't duplicate the depth and the speed control on a cast to make the fish strike the lure. Trolling situation. That's understandable. But not all situations are trolling situations. Over 90% of them aren't. In 90% of the places you go fishing, the casting position is a possibility. And you can let casting be an enemy, but if it's used correctly, as described in Mr. Perry's materials, the casting will be the thing that will give you the big catch. This is where the big catch comes. This is where the 11 bass on 11 casts, the 6 bass on 8 casts, the 40 bass on 50 casts. This is where these great catches come. With trolling being the teacher, trolling being the final mapping tool with the spoon plug, it alerts you to the fact that there may be a migration of large bass on a particular structure. Then you have to take it from there. You have to get in the casting position. We've all heard Mr. Perry, and we start out the basic movement of fish, and his famous thing, we're not going to go any further if you can't believe the home of the fish is in deep water. Then he tells us about weather and water conditions. So we put the migration and the weather and water conditions together. He tells us about the structure, breaks and break lines, and how the fish relate to them. and certain bottom features. And we believe this, and we accept it as gospel. But when we get to the mapping and interpretation, when we get to the presentation of lures, with the other knowledge we have, this is where you and I come into the picture. This is where we got to do something. This is where the difficulty arises. The more experience, the more knowledge you have, the faster you're going to learn, and the faster you're going to be able to do things properly. Now, if you never anchor the boat, this is never going to happen to you. You're going to continually miss these schools of big bass. This slide here, I would like to have Mr. Perry give me one, with 700 and 800 passes, with the last pass being the final pass. It says 100 on there. But just imagine 2 passes deeper, either with wire or with the 700 and 800, the final pass coming up on the structure from the deep water, coming off the structure into the deep water. This school of fish should be located. Now, if you're located at this school of fish and you continue to make passes, you need not have to do that. This tells you the light bulb goes on. I better anchor the boat. Mr. Perry says I better anchor the boat. This may be a casting situation. It more than likely is. I caught one big fish, 500. I lost another one on the jump. Now I ran to 700 and 800, I hit another one. Do I continually troll over them, or do I anchor the boat? This is what the spoon plugger does. This is the difference between Joe and Pete. Pete has progressed further than Joe because he's tried to take Mr. Perry's teachings and he's tried to adapt himself to it, and he's trying to force himself to do the right thing at the right time. For instance, most casting position problems are this. I know I should cast. Boom, that's one. It pops into your mind. Well, I'm not going to do it. It's too much trouble. The minute that idea popped into your mind, it was the thing to do, and you knew it. That's why you got that idea. That's too windy for me to cast. Do it anyway. It's raining too hard for me to anchor the boat. Do it anyway. This is a must to progress as a spoon plugger. This is a must. This is the frosting on the cake. This is why you work so hard. Certain situations, as I said before, may prevent you from doing this. But 90% of the time, 90% of the time, it can be done. And you say, well, how am I going to do it? You know, how do you do this? How do you find this spot? For years and years and years, Mr. Perry has preached, he's made videotapes. Lay out your markers and map the structure first. If anything, these markers will relate to your position as to where the fish was caught. You've got something to relate to. If, however, you're like me and you daydream once in a while and you find your mind wandering, you've always got a marker near you, though. You come up on a bar, you're not especially sure where you're at, and you do hook a big fish. You throw the marker immediately. If you don't, if you get too excited to throw it, or you're worried about losing the fish, by the time you yourself or you and a partner drift off and land this fish, you're 40 yards away from where all this happened. Now you swing around, and you come back, and you say, oh boy, where was I? Where if you threw the marker, it's this simple. If you threw the marker, you would have something to relate to. Now trying to get rifle sights, and that's another thing, for straight line passes, perhaps you can hit that spot again. Perhaps hook another fish, another bass, throw another marker. Now you're going the other direction. I know this sounds too, you say, boy, that sounds simple. Well, now they're in between those two markers. Now it's a matter of interpretation. Is there a finger inside those two markers? And a wind is blowing like crazy. Is there a finger inside those two markers? Now, using that depth finder as an aid, because you didn't use it when you made your trolling pass, you had no reason to. You had a rifle sight for a straight line trolling pass. You had markers out to mark the shape of the structure. But now it's going to be an aid because you're using it properly, the way Mr. Perry told us to. Now we're going to look for a finger or something in between those two markers. Having located that, now comes the problem of anchoring the boat. My boat's too big to anchor it. Get rid of it. My anchor's in the front of the boat. Move it to the back. Where are you at? You're in the back. My anchor's not heavy enough. I'm not even going to say what the answer to that one is. So now what do? Well, you interpret it because you understand how to map and interpret the structure. You see the finger. You've got another marker in the boat. You should have several of these things, not one. It's a simple matter to forget all about the anchor for a minute. The wind is blowing like crazy. The boat, you say, how am I ever going to anchor here? I don't know where I'm supposed to anchor. Using the depth finder as an aid, you've got the two markers already. The fish are in between the two markers somewhere. And certainly there could be a space of about 30 yards. You pick this finger out, you've got another marker in your hand. Either in reverse or you can, if the waves aren't too high, or in forward, go up on the structure, place the marker exactly where you want to anchor the boat, where you want the boat to be, not where you want the anchor to be, where you want the boat to be. Put a marker right up on the bar where you want it to be. Now you don't have to be fiddling with that depth finder. Now you can worry about the wind. You can worry about the waves. You want to know which way the wind's coming from, because when you put the anchor down, that's going to decide where the boat's going to go. Now with the marker exactly where you put it, your map and interpretation, you should be right. With the marker down on the structure, on top of the finger, as shallow as you can anchor and still reach the break line, where you caught the fish. Now it's a simple matter to either go upwind from the marker, drop your anchor, let out enough rope to hold, and your boat should come to rest right at the marker. It's a simple matter of judging the wind. Of course, you have to have enough rope out to hold. So there's a little bit you have to do. Now, when the boat bumps up against the anchor, you tie it off in the back where you're sitting. You've got total control. You can't motor up and then run to the front of the boat and try to put the anchor down. There's no telling where you're going to be. So the anchor has to be with you in the back. That's your partner back there. That's how simple it is. It's a little bit hard when you first try it. It's very difficult sometimes in the wind. And if you're not in the right place, you're not near the marker when you're done, you say, oh boy, here we go. You pull your anchor up and you move again. You've got to be in the right place. You could miss those fish by 10 feet, 10 yards. If they're not real active, you're not going to get it unless you make it the right cast. It's hard for us to believe that not only could we miss this group of fish, it's hard for us to believe that we could not make the right cast. That spot may not be any bigger than that tabletop. And that lure has to come right through it because that's where they are. They're not going to move 10 feet over, and they're not going to move 10 feet right or 10 feet to the left. It's got to come through them. That's how exact you have to be at times. Other times they're real active and chasing, and all of a sudden, boom, there they are. But that cast has to be as good as that trolling pass that hits the contact point. That's the contact point. He hit it on the troll. He got the big bass. Now he's casted. He's casting. He's working his spoon plug up the drop off, hitting the contact point, and retrieving it all the way to the boat. He's bringing it right through the school of fish. Mr. Perry said this in here last year, and I watched people's faces. I watched to see. He said, the more people casting into this school, it puts them in a frenzy. And they will not drop off as quick. We can hold them there by keeping the Lord walking through them all the time. And I watch people's faces. Some people just have a blank look on their face. I can tell they've never been into a school with these mass casting, because that's exactly what happens. The more lures you have walking through them, naturally the more you're going to hook or catch, but also it keeps them in a frenzy. As one comes by and that fish is gone, the rest of them are looking for what's going on here. Here comes another one. And it can even help to hold them up there longer. This is not some storybook affair that you see on the pictures. This really happens. This really happens. This can be you. This is as much as spoon plugging as catching and trolling. This, as I said before, I said it 3 times, I say it again, this is the frosting on the cake. This is what you're working so hard for. For you and I not to take advantage of this, we are really making a big mistake. He devotes so much time in the home study, in his green book, and also in the little gray booklet. Devotes time to casting. It's very important at the right time and in the right place. People say, well, that right time and the right place is about 8% of the time. No, it's probably closer to 95% of the time than it is 8. Especially in the case of the largemouth bass and smallmouth bass. They don't scatter along break lines and things like that. They have a tendency to school and stay tightly together when the migration is on and they moved up within reach. That's what makes them so vulnerable at that particular time, that they aren't scattered on these deeper break lines. Some people say they have trouble casting. Gee whiz, I have trouble. Go practice in the yard. Other people that have taken out, believe it or not, they've got all the stuff that Buck recommends, the casting equipment. They've got it. So I tell them, all right, we've done this as far as trolling procedures go. I'm going to anchor on a productive structure. We're going to work it with spoon plugs on the cast. We're going to work it with jump type lures on the cast as part of your teaching. And the guy says, I can't cast. I said, okay. I said, you're with me. There's nothing to worry about. We're going to practice out here. I'm going to help you as much as I can. This is the truth. He's been carrying this $50 or $60 reel and a $40 to $60 rod around with brand new line on it and everything, and he never made a cast. But if Buck was to walk up to his boat, look down in there, he'd say, you got the right stuff. He made sure he's got the right stuff. He looks right, but you got to use it. You got to use it. I just want to drive this point home about the casting position, and I mean drive it home. Some of these cuts out here and things at times, perhaps the current is too swift. Other times, it's not. Other times, the fish could be in a little eddy area right inside the cut. You may have to anchor deep and use a jump type lure to catch them. And you'd say, oh my God, that's a sacrilege, a jump type lure to catch them. Once again, if people read Buck's material, he devotes a certain section to jump type lures. Their use under proper conditions, extra cold water, very dormant fish, extra deep fish, okay? Casting into the channel or into the eddy, having an anchor deeper than what you would like to do. And then you get a little spot out here like the island right across from the campground where all the fish are working right now. They're being caught on 400s, 250s, and 200s. And you can anchor in 7 feet of water and cast into 30. So you got the same length, the long delta condition with the cut, the deeper breaks along the river channel on the delta condition with the cut. Plus, you've got a shallow structure up here that you can run all sizes of lures on, plus anchor and cast right into the channel in several places. These are all the things that fit together. They can be caught off the delta casting. They can be caught certainly off these short bars over there by the island. And at times, maybe pre-spawn, I don't know when, I don't fish here that much, but at times they're going to be up in those cuts, at least part way up. There's 21 feet of water in those cuts. They may move up there in a pre-spawn movement. They may be halfway up that cut, where you could anchor in 8, 9 feet. On the edge of the cut, cast into the 21 feet, retrieve your spoon plug right up the break line through the cut, and be into a school of big ones. And I say, well, if you don't fish down there that much, how do you know they're in the cut? You know they're ever there. How do I know they're ever there? We know we need a pass to the shoreline for the cut to be productive for largemouth bass. Why do we need a pass to the shallows? We need a pass to the shallows so the fish can get up there and spawn. If they can't spawn, they can't exist. And if they go up there to spawn, that tells me that they're in there some of the time. When you think about that, I think it makes a lot of sense. And they're as vulnerable as they're ever going to be when they're up in those narrow cuts where you can anchor and cast into that cut and they're there. And they may be there more than you'd like to think they're there. It's worth a try. Okay, so a casting position is possible under many circumstances where you would think it isn't. And you're never going to know unless you try it. You don't listen to anybody else. You do it yourself. You follow Buck's guidelines. You follow his writings and teachings on the casting position, the placement of the boat. Use a little tip I gave you about using a marker of where you want the boat to be. And then you don't have to worry about fiddling around with nothing. You just make sure you got the wind right and so on. You got enough rope out so that when you're set where you think you should be to make that cast, that boat's bumping right up against that marker. I know you're going to have to try it before some of you are going to take my word for it. Several people that were in the classes have already had that experience, and that's great. And they related to the other people that were in the classes here at the Holiday Inn. They related their experiences to them involving this casting position. Okay, so it's something you have to think about. It's as much as spoon plugging as just trolling around all day long. It's the proper and precise manner in which to fish. Reaching those deeper fish, you might have never got them on another trolling pass. But because you anchored the boat, you're there right on time. And remember this, when you get into a group of them, they're not going to be there for a half an hour. So when you catch the first big one, your partner nets them for you. I would advise you to release them right there. I'd put them in a live well for a while. I wouldn't release them right there. You don't want to lose too many or be releasing fish that you're catching one right after the other in the school. They could spook the school, swimming straight back down there. You know, put them in a live well and take some pictures of them later. Because if you're so emotional that you hold them up, your partner gets to take a picture of you and a big grin on your face, well, we better take 2 more, okay? And then you put them in a live well. Remember Mr. Perry's teachings. The movement lasts in minutes rather than hours. All the while you're shooting pictures of yourself, you should be casting. At times, if you're going to keep them, you could drop them in the bottom of the boat and just keep casting. If you're going to release them after taking a picture of them, just put them in a live well. But after the live well ready, don't be fiddling around with the plug. You have to rapid fire. You've got to keep those casts coming to get as many as you can. I'll be glad to answer any questions on this subject. I'd be more than glad to answer any questions on this subject at all before we finish here. And I'll be glad to talk to anyone afterwards about this situation that has a problem that perhaps, casting that perhaps I don't know about or I didn't cover. But I think it was about time, being that we're all together, that we all progress as spoon pluggers and try and take advantage of the thing that Mr. Perry has experienced so many, many times, and I've been fortunate enough to experience with him. Okay, so if we could, do we have any questions at all? Yes, sir.
Yes, Terry. Did you stop and cast even before you catch that fish in the troll?
If I was on the lake, then I did. The question was, would I stop and cast before I caught a fish on the troll? If I was on a lake that I didn't know it very well. I'd fished it before, but didn't know it very well, and had not caught a largemouth bass off of that particular spot, chances are no, I would not. I would not anchor unless the spot was proof productive. As one would say, it's trolling water until proven otherwise. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Anybody? Okay, if you want to talk or anything, I'll be around here for a while. Okay, I'm going to be around here for dinner and stuff. I'll be glad to talk to anybody. I hope you enjoyed this part of the program. I hope I made an impression on you as far as casting goes. And I hope you were satisfied with this. I'll see you. Let's have a lot of fun. Yes.
If you find the fish or say they're down to 35, 38 feet, you can't cast a spoon plug to have enough line to get down the line or anything. You use any weight jig as long as it's heavy? Or?
The question was, the fish are down at 35 feet, and perhaps we got an anchor about 20 feet or something like that, okay, to make the cast. To even reach the 35-foot break line, what do we do? When we have to anchor that deep, we might have to use a jump tech lure on the cast, or a heavy jig, okay? It couldn't weigh, depending on current, like out here with that current, I don't know just how bad it is, but it could weigh an ounce, it could weigh 5/8 of an ounce, 3/4 of an ounce, something heavy would sink, and we could feel it. Anchored that deep and casting it that deep, we need to have some control. Now, if the speed control on the cast was such that we couldn't produce a strike, and what would that be, John? Now it would give us a trolling situation. In order to catch the fish, we'd have to have a trolling situation with the wire line so that we could get the combination of the speed and the depth. When we use the jump tech lure, we give up the speed a little bit, more than a little bit. We can't really control the speed as much. We have the depth, but if we needed this speed to produce a strike, now that could be a situation, that could be a trolling situation. Up in Watts Bar, I guess, with these big rockfish going down to deeper break lines, if you can't get them up any shallower, you can't get them casting, it becomes a trolling situation. But we recognize that. We recognize that when it happens. But in situations that I'm talking about, 90% of the country, 90% of the lakes, this is possible. Okay? Yes, sir.
One of my concerns in taking up the casting position is keep in mind the movement is only minutes in length. I've hit a couple of good ones on the troll. By the time I feel like I get located right where they are, get the anchor place and everything, the homecoming's over with. The party's over, and that's one of the reasons I'm so reluctant to go to cast.
Okay? That's what happens most of the time to all of us, especially in the beginning. We say, gee whiz, if I waste any more time, they're going to all be gone, right? That's a feeling that you have. And you're secure in the trolling because you feel that I did the right thing. I caught the fish. I got a couple. If I don't get another one, I got a couple. But what I'm saying is, at least try it. Pursue it. Because sooner or later, a movement's gonna last long enough that you're gonna be into it. You'll really surprise yourself. And you say, I'll be damned, that guy's right. But remember, I'm not right. Buck Perry's right. Okay? So I know what you mean. You're reluctant to gas, but man, I'm catching my, you know. But the casting could become your enemy, but not in this case. Believe me. Just give it a try. Okay? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Can't reach the area on control. It's too deep to hang past the scoop while the jury do a jig or jump back over rather than both.
Okay, we can't reach the area on a troll. Okay? What kind of a condition is it? I mean, what, is it a drop off that's that deep that you're at the base of a structure or?
Well, it could be like a deep cut or something, or underwater pump, something like that.
Could you get over it and use a jump spoon on it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Vertical jig, slow fish, early spring, and you know, and I love the fish you guys have down there because at the time that you'd be doing that, we'd have to cut a hole in the ice. You understand what I mean? Okay? But you can't get them with a jump spoon under those circumstances. If you're right on top of it. Yeah, but you can't. You couldn't really go all along the river channel and do that. You know what I mean? You'd have to have a precise spot that you knew to be productive. And you've caught fish there. Okay? Or maybe a little shallower than where you are right now. This would be the same as a steep shoreline. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Like a lot of times we're fishing on a river, and there's a current on the river. It's a pretty good current. And I've tried to cast with the current sideways, and I just can't get a lure down to 20 feet. It's 20, 30 feet out of place.
Yeah. Once again, there are trolling situations, and that could very well be one of them, okay?
How do you free on? How do you cast it to a current? Do you get downstream?
Well, if it's that strong, it's very difficult to do so. The St. John's River was like that, out on those big bars out in the river. And you cast out there, you cast over here, and by the time it's over here, it's very, very difficult, okay? So once again, you'd probably be in a trolling situation like that. That would be your best bet to catch a fish. Okay? Anybody else? Okay, we'll conclude this little program. I'll be around here. Be glad to talk to anybody, and let's have a good time the rest of the time.
And it takes 6 children's hangers,
Yeah.
1 strand of 35 lights, and 2 strands of garland and masking tape.
Now,
Lots of nerves.
that wire, is that all wire there?
Yeah, they're plastic, they're children's
Hangers?
hangers. Where's your wife? Is she gonna make one?
She went shopping.
Wait till she sees
So
these.
when she sees these, she'll be jealous, I'm sure.
She can still make one.
Yeah.
still
Yeah. Looks
make-
nice. So you got the Christmas. Now what's the tinsel? You just get that tinsel from?
Yeah, 2 packs of garland.
2 rows of garland.
Oh, I see.
$1 a row, 18 feet.
Okay.